All right, how's it going, everyone? Josh here from Doyen Artists. Usually, I kind of have been just doing more of like a flow or day in the lifestyle vlog, and I thought today I'd do more of a sit down kind of a learning vlog, or at least just like my experience vlog, like things that I tend to do when working uh, on films with Doyen. But today, I wanted to talk about the lenses that I like to use, mainly the lens that I like to use when we're filming short films for Doyen. Um, I have five five lenses, I believe, in my arsenal. If you don't count my second 50 millimeter, which would make six lenses. Um, but I kind of wanted to go run through a few of them that I really enjoy using. Um, and yeah, so we can talk about that here. So I'm gonna go in order of like least used to probably most used. Um, and then we can talk for a long little while about why I like to use these lenses. Least used right now for the stuff we've been working on actually um, is this 24 to 105 F4L. Um, this lens is fantastic, super sharp, uh, f4 all the way through from 24 to 105. You know, it hits those longer focal ranges and also hits like that nice wide open. Um, but the reason why it's been the least used lately is because zoom lenses just don't tend to be as sharp as my prime lenses. I definitely notice a pretty decent difference um, working like that. However, we used this lens as the one and only lens when we were filming Living It Up, um, because it had that zoom focal range on it. Um, I was able to punch in on the shots and get that kind of like mockumentary look that like they do in The Office or in like Parks and Rec. And I could just zoom in and focus. Actually, it's funny the way I should do a whole nother video all about this, but the way I filmed Living It Up, completely different than probably what most people would have done. Um, but I can definitely do that for another video. It'd be pretty fun actually. How to not film a mockumentary, or how to film a mockumentary when you don't on a budget. But yeah, 24 to 105, excellent lens, great lens, not being used much right now. We did actually film with this lens for He'll Be Done by Sundown. We used this lens primarily. The reason I did that is because I didn't even have a tripod at that time. I actually don't know what happened to my tripod, but and this has image stabilization on it. Um, so that helped me with all the handheld shots that I had to do. And it was still a little shaky, but it played a big impact on helping. Next least often used lens is this pretty freaking stellar 85 millimeter whoop, 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 uh, f 1.8. This lens is crazy sharp. Um, the optics on this, like, and it's like, I know they have the 85 f 1.4, the L series 85 millimeter. Um, but this one is the f 1.8. It's significantly cheaper. I think it's probably in the $300 range, whereas the 1.4 is closer to around $900, maybe 1,000 right now if you're getting it used. Brand new, it's probably 1,200 plus. But I used this lens a lot when we were doing portrait photography work in Chicago. It flattens out my image significantly, makes those facial features look real nice. Um, don't use it much. It doesn't have image stabilization on it, so unless I'm working with something that's highly stabilized or on a tripod, you can see all those little micro jitters. I did use it on our last short film, which hasn't been released yet. I used it for a couple of the opening shots, which maybe I can include in here. I'll ask Chase and see if I can include those quick snippets of shots or not. But you could definitely see in there that there was the micro jitters. But luckily, it kind of gave that impression that you were looking at someone from a distance. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like I'm squinting in. So, despite it being an amazing lens, it just doesn't. I don't get to use it as much as I'd like. I have been considering selling it and then putting that money towards a 100 millimeter macro. I think it's like an F2.8L. And that lens we used a couple of times for another film we haven't released yet, Letters to the Heart. And that lens is long, so 100 millimeters, I can definitely hit stuff from an angle. It also has a really short focal distance, so I can focus real tight on subjects with that macro. And on top of that, it has image stabilization. So it would really benefit me to probably swap over to that lens at some point in time. But for now, budget, 85, good, inexpensive lens, very, very sharp, super sharp, way sharper than you would expect to get from a non-L series lens. Yeah. The next lens that I use is actually the one I'm filming with right now. And it's the 50 millimeter f1.4. We filmed Salt in the Wound. We filmed that entire film using that 50 millimeter and the Canon 6D. That lens is impeccable. I'm always amazed. Stop down to f1.4, it's a little soft, but once you just bump it up to f2, which I think f2 is what I shot that whole film at, man, that thing it's beautiful, beautiful bokeh. It's extremely sharp. Yeah, there's just, I don't know, no complaints with that lens at all. Well, actually, one complaint with this lens is very loud focus motor. And it's also, it feels kind of flimsy. Like this 85, despite it being mostly plastic, actually feels like it's got a good feel to it. And the 50 kind of feels a little cheap, but it is cheap. I think the 1.4 can also be bought for like $200-300. If you don't own a 50 millimeter, you should get a 50 millimeter because they are fantastic, especially on full frame cameras where they give that kind of look. It's pretty close to what I see, you know, or what you see with the human eye. 50 millimeter. If you can't afford a 1.4, get a 1.8. For sure, I think a lot of times you can get them for way less than $100. Probably like 60-70 bucks. Used maybe $50. Like, you got no excuse not to have a nice quality, fast prime lens. The last but not least lens that I want to talk about today. I know I said I have 5 lenses in my arsenal, but the other one is a fisheye lens, and that almost never gets used except for like some interesting photography or skating. I like to use it for skating because it lets me move without ever having to worry about focus. But I'm going to talk about my favorite lens that I've been using lately for pretty much most of our short films. It sits on the camera the most often, at least my main camera here, is the 28 millimeter f1.8. And I know that's kind of a weird focal distance, but it's fast, f1.8. I stop it down to 2.8 typically for our films, and it gets pretty sharp at 2.8. The reason why I like this lens so much is the EOS R actually has, when shooting in 4K, which we have been doing for our short films, I don't do it with these vlogs, but I can explain that another time. But when shooting in 4K with the EOS R, it has like a 1.7-ish crop factor to it, and that crop factor makes it so everything, you take your focal length, multiply it by like 1.7, that's pretty much where your like actual focal length would be. So so a 28 millimeter is just short of, it's like 49, I think it's like 48, 49 millimeters focal length, which gives you that 50 millimeter look that you would get if it wasn't cropped in. And I love that look. On top of that, because it's kind of wider, I don't have to worry about getting those jittery shots. So I can definitely move a little more fluidly. It's not as shaky, and it's fast. So like despite this lens, the 24 to 105, you know, I could easily focus to 28 millimeters if I wanted to. It's not as fast, and it's not as sharp, but it does have that image stabilization. But this being so wide, I never really have to worry about that. And it's crops into around 48 millimeters, and it's perfect. I love it. I wanted to bring up that this lens can probably be bought for, I can't remember what I paid for it, but it's only a few $100. It's like $300. It's not an L series lens, but again, to make quality work, I don't think you need L series glass. I think L series glass does make a difference, a quality boost, but you gotta be aware of what you're paying for that quality boost. So it's like, sure, I could probably get a really nice quality boost from going from this 85 to that 100 millimeter macro, right? But is it worth that price difference of, you know, $600, $700, $800 when it might not be that noticeable to most people? Now, is image stabilization and the macro features of that lens worth it, along with that added sharpness? Yes. So that is why I one day want to get rid of this guy and move on over to that. But I've looked into the 24 millimeter I can't remember what it is. It might be F2L. And that looks like a good lens, but it's hard for me to justify getting rid of this. I mean, it's done great work. Overall, I think this is going to be being used on our shoots for quite some time to come. I do a lot of my vlogs with this, actually. I threw this on there for the last two vlogs, I think. At first, I had this 24 to 105 on there because of the zoom. I thought would be nice, but I quickly realized that I could get a nice little shallow depth of field going on. 28 millimeters is wide enough that it's not too shaky. Yeah, love this lens. Worth every penny. Highly recommend. And I think that's it. Yeah, but that's all I got for today. It's a pretty short, sweet little vlog about my favorite lenses. Peace.